My sister said, I deserve this more than you. And stole my engagement ring, so I took her beloved jewelry collection and gave it all to charity. It was a Saturday morning in Houston, Texas, and I was bleary-eyed and half awake, sipping my coffee and trying to wake up when my phone buzzed with a call from my sister, Denise. Denise never called this early unless it was some kind of emergency, so I jolted to attention, thinking something was wrong. Denise? I answered, half expecting her to tell me someone was in the hospital. It's early. What's going on? Her voice was tense. I need to talk to you, Maria, she said. Now. Her words hit like a slap. No hello or how are you. Just straight to business. I stood there, blinking, trying to shake the sleep off. Okay, I said slowly, gripping my mug a little tighter. Is everything all right? I'll be over in 10, she snapped, and before I could get another word in, she hung up. I stared at the screen, baffled. Denise was intense sometimes, but she wasn't usually this cold. I tossed my coffee in the sink and glanced around, wondering if I needed to tidy up for her. But no sooner had I started straightening a stack of magazines when she was at the door, knocking like a cop. I opened it, and she stood there, arms crossed, a grim expression on her face. Come in, I murmured, stepping aside. She didn't move. This won't take long, she said, standing as stiffly as a soldier. I was still groggy and only half tuned in, but her tone had me waking up fast. Okay, Denise, what's up? I asked, feeling a weird, prickly feeling in my stomach. She took a breath, crossed her arms tighter, and then looked at me with this unsettling intensity. Maria. I think I deserve it. I raised an eyebrow. Deserve what? The ring, Maria. Your engagement ring, she said it flatly, like it was just some ordinary, reasonable statement. I blinked, stunned. My. What? I shook my head, hoping I'd misheard. What are you talking about? She rolled her eyes like I was dense. The ring, Maria. I deserve it more than you do. I should have that engagement ring. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to process this. Her words were hitting me, but it was like they weren't sinking in. My engagement ring? The one Noah gave me barely a month ago? The ring I'd been staring at every day, twirling around my finger and daydreaming about the future? What? I finally managed, sounding as bewildered as I felt. Denise, what are you even talking about? She let out a frustrated sigh, like she was dealing with a stubborn child. Maria, come on. I'm the older sister. I've been with Paul for 8 years. 8 years, Maria. And he still hasn't proposed. Meanwhile, you and Noah? You've been dating for, what, 2 years? And just like that, he gives you this big, fairy tale proposal with this amazing ring? It's ridiculous. And unfair. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Denise, I said slowly, still hoping this was some bizarre prank, I don't understand. How does my engagement ring have anything to do with you? She scoffed, looking at me like I was clueless. You don't get it, do you? I'm the one who's sacrificed. I'm the one who's put everyone first. I stayed here in Houston to help with Dad when he got sick. I kept Paul from moving to New York for his job so he could be here for the family. And for what? So my little sister could waltz in and get the life I should have had? Denise, I stammered, my voice shaking with a mix of confusion and anger. I'm sorry Paul hasn't proposed, I really am. But that has nothing to do with me, or with Noah, or with my engagement ring. Oh, it has everything to do with it, she snapped, her face contorting with frustration. You're just so blind to it, Maria. You've always had it easy. People just hand you things, and you don't even see it. My mouth dropped open. I don't even know what to say to that. Denise, I love you, but this is crazy. Noah proposed to me because he loves me. I can't control what Paul does or doesn't do. That's between you and him. Denise's face was flushed, and she looked angrier than I'd ever seen her. You're so selfish, she spat, her voice low and furious. You've always been selfish. And maybe one day you'll understand just how much you owe me. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard that one of my wedding invitation samples fell off the coffee table. I stood there, frozen, a million thoughts racing through my mind. This couldn't be happening. Denise wasn't perfect, but she'd never acted like this before. She'd never been this bitter. Days passed, and I tried to push that strange confrontation out of my mind. But then, one morning, I went to my dresser to put on my engagement ring and found it missing. Panic rose in my chest. I tore my room apart, searching every corner. I even called Noah, asking if he'd seen it. But I knew. Deep down, I knew exactly where it had gone. My heart pounding, I dialed Denise's number. She picked up on the second ring, and I didn't even give her a chance to speak. Denise, I practically shouted, did you take my engagement ring? There was a pause, and then she laughed, a cold, smug laugh that made my blood boil. Relax, Maria, she said, her tone condescending. I'm keeping it safe. You don't need to worry about it. My hand shook as I gripped the phone. Are you kidding me? Give it back, Denise. Now. She sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. You don't need it right now, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Why do you even care, Maria? It's just a ring. My mouth went dry. Just a ring? Denise, Noah gave me that ring. It's mine. You can't just take something that doesn't belong to you. Oh, can't I? She sneered. It's not like you appreciate what you have. I mean, look at you. Everything's just so perfect in your world, isn't it? And what about me, Maria? What about everything I've given up? Denise, this is insane, I shouted, feeling a wave of desperation wash over me. You're my sister. How could you do this to me? Maybe because you deserve it, she said, her voice icy. Maybe because it's about time someone put you in your place. And then she hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. This was my sister, my own flesh and blood. How could she be so cruel? So vengeful? Days turned into weeks, and I kept begging her to give it back. I even tried asking my mom to intervene, but Denise brushed it off, acting as though I was the one overreacting. And the worst part? She wore it. She wore my engagement ring to family gatherings, flashing it around like it was hers, smiling that smug, satisfied smile that made me want to scream. Every time I saw it on her hand, it felt like a knife twisting in my heart. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was the symbol of one of the happiest moments of my life, a promise I shared with Noah. And Denise had stolen that from me. After nearly a month of this nightmare, something in me snapped. I decided if she wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty, too. I knew Denise's weak spot, her jewelry collection. She'd been obsessed with jewelry ever since she was a teenager. Over the years, she'd amassed a vast collection of necklaces, bracelets, and earrings, some of them incredibly valuable. It was her pride and joy, her prized possession. And I knew exactly where she kept it. One evening, when she was out with friends, I let myself into her house with the spare key she'd given me years ago, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and exhilaration. I went straight to her jewelry box, grabbing everything she owned. Her favorite pair of sapphire earrings. The diamond necklace she'd saved up for months to buy. The charm bracelet she'd gotten on our family trip to Italy. I took it all, stuffing it into a bag. Then, I drove to the local charity shop. I handed over the entire bag to the woman behind the counter, trying to ignore the pang of guilt in my chest. Please, I told her, swallowing the lump in my throat. Make sure these go to people who really need them. As I walked out of that shop, a strange sense of liberation washed over me. Denise had taken something precious from me, and I'd finally taken something back. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Denise, and the moment I picked up, she exploded. You gave away my jewelry? She shrieked, her voice shaking with fury. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. It's just jewelry, Denise. Why do you care so much? She let out a strangled scream. You're unbelievable, Maria. Do you have any idea what you've done? That was my life's collection. Oh, now it's a big deal? I shot back, feeling a strange sense of satisfaction. It's just jewelry, Denise. Why do you need it so badly? There was a long silence, and then she spoke, her voice breaking. You're selfish, Maria. You've always been selfish. And maybe one day, you'll realize that I was the only one who ever truly looked out for you. I closed my eyes, feeling a pang of sadness. Denise, I loved you. But this whole stunt with my ring? That crossed a line. I didn't ask you to sacrifice anything for me. You chose your path, just like I chose mine. She let out a bitter laugh. You think you're better than me, don't you? No, I said softly. But I think I deserve my own happiness, Denise. And so do you. But you need to stop blaming me for your choices. She hung up without another word. It's been 3 months since that conversation, and Denise and I haven't spoken since. Every family gathering is tense and uncomfortable, with my parents tiptoeing around us, trying to pretend everything is fine. I got my ring back, but something between Denise and me has been shattered, something I don't know if we can ever repair. There's a part of me that still hopes we can find our way back to being sisters. That one day, we'll laugh about this, shake our heads, and wonder how we ever let things get so out of hand. But another part of me knows some things, once broken, can't be fixed. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Months passed, and Denise and I remained estranged. My parents kept hoping we'd reconcile, trying their best to stay neutral, but I could tell they were heartbroken. I wasn't exactly thrilled about it either. This was my sister, and a part of me missed her. We'd grown up together, gone through so much together. But after what she'd done, I couldn't just go back to pretending everything was okay. Then came Thanksgiving. My parents insisted on hosting the whole family, hoping it might bring us together. My dad called me 2 days before. Maria, he said, his voice strained, please come. You and Denise both. It's Thanksgiving, sweetheart, we want the family together. Just give it a chance? Dad, I don't know if that's a good idea, I replied, biting my lip. Please, honey, he said quietly. Your mom and I just want one nice holiday. No arguments, no tension. Just a normal family Thanksgiving. I took a deep breath, realizing how much this meant to them. All right, I agreed. I'll be there. But don't expect miracles. So, there I was, standing in my parents' kitchen on Thanksgiving Day, nervously stirring the gravy while my mom basted the turkey. My stomach twisted in knots, dreading what would happen when Denise walked in. And then, right on cue, she arrived, waltzing into the kitchen with her signature smirk. To my shock, and my mother's obvious horror, she was wearing my engagement ring. Again. Denise, Mom gasped, her eyes widening. Is that Maria's ring? Denise smiled, an air of defiance in her eyes. Oh, relax, Mom. Maria knows it looks better on me anyway. My jaw clenched as I fought to keep my cool. Denise, we've been over this. That ring belongs to me. She laughed, waving her hand in front of my face. Maybe legally, but in every other sense, it's mine. I deserve it. You know I do. The audacity of her words, the smug look on her face, it was the last straw. I glanced at my mom, who looked like she was about to cry. This was supposed to be a peaceful holiday, a chance to patch things up. But Denise was still hell-bent on humiliating me. She'd taken it too far, and I was done playing nice. I stepped closer, meeting her gaze head-on. You know what, Denise? I've had enough. You can have that ring, because I have something you'll never have. She snorted, crossing her arms. Oh, please, Maria. Enlighten me. I gave her a slow smile. The ability to let go of petty jealousy. The respect of our family. And soon enough, I'll have Noah as my husband, while you'll be left clinging to a stolen ring and your resentment. Her face hardened, but I could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. And by the way, Denise, I continued, my voice icy, I wasn't going to bring this up today, but since you're here acting like a queen with my property, I thought you should know. I took the liberty of calling Paul last week. Her eyes widened, her smirk vanishing. What? What are you talking about? Paul and I had a little chat, I said, savoring every word. He was pretty shocked to hear about your behavior, Denise. Turns out he's been wondering why you've been so distant lately, why you've been avoiding his calls. She looked furious now. You had no right. Oh, but I did, I interrupted smoothly. You made it clear you wanted my life so badly, I thought I'd do you a favor and clear up a few things with Paul. You know, set the record straight. Denise's face went pale. What did you tell him? I told him about the ring, of course. About how you stole it. About how you refused to give it back and wore it around town like it was yours. I gave her a sad smile. You should have seen his face, Denise. He looked like he'd just been slapped. I mean, think about it, he's been with you for years, and here you are, obsessing over my engagement ring, my relationship. It's no wonder he's starting to rethink things. Her eyes filled with panic, but she quickly masked it, crossing her arms tightly. Paul doesn't care about any of that. He knows what I've sacrificed for this family. He knows how much I've given up. Oh, he knows now, all right, I said. I made sure he understood exactly what kind of person you've become. Someone so desperate for a ring, she'd rather destroy her sister's happiness than work on her own life. Denise's face twisted with rage, but I was just getting started. You've been living in this twisted fantasy where everyone owes you something, I continued. But that's not reality, Denise. The only person who owes you anything is yourself. You need to figure out why you can't be happy without tearing down everyone around you. She looked ready to explode, but before she could say anything, my mom cleared her throat, her voice shaking. Denise, honey, she said softly, I love you, but Maria's right. This isn't who you are. You've let jealousy turn you into someone I don't recognize. Someone none of us recognize. Denise's expression crumbled, her tough exterior cracking.
Mom, she whispered, her voice trembling, I didn't mean to.
Didn't mean to what? I cut in, my voice steely. You took something that didn't belong to you, Denise. You did it deliberately, with no regard for anyone else's feelings. And all for what? So you could feel superior? Denise's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but I didn't back down. It's over, Denise. This little game of yours, it's done. You've lost everything that matters. And that ring? Keep it if you want. Because honestly, I'd rather you have it as a reminder of everything you threw away. She stood there, looking lost, her face a mixture of anger and regret. Finally, she slipped the ring off her finger, her hand shaking, and held it out to me. I took it, feeling a strange sense of closure as I slipped it back onto my own hand. Denise's shoulders slumped, and she looked at my mom, then back at me. I'm sorry, she whispered, barely audible. I nodded, my heart heavy. I hope you mean that, Denise. For your own sake. I hope you can find happiness without needing to take it from someone else. She looked down, nodding slightly, and then without another word, she turned and left, her footsteps echoing down the hall. I watched her go, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness, a bittersweet end to the sisterhood we'd once had. As I looked at my mom, her eyes brimming with tears, I knew things would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, Denise had finally reached the point where she could see herself for who she truly was. And maybe that was the first step toward healing. Thanksgiving dinner was quiet, the mood somber but strangely peaceful. For the first time in months, I felt like a weight had been lifted. And though Denise and I still had a long way to go, I knew I'd done the right thing, both for me and for her.